Well, those were the headlines. Our top story: 4 Indians have been abducted in Libya, supposedly by ISIS rebels. This is the news that we're getting in, that the kidnapping has been confirmed by the government, which has said that the Indian mission in Tripoli was informed last night at 11 p.m. The 4 men, 2 from Hyderabad, 1 from Bengaluru and the 4th is from Raichur in Karnataka, were reportedly stopped at a rebel checkpoint 50 kilometers from the town of Sirt. According to reports, 3 of those abducted are teaching at a university, while the 4th was working with the Jafra University. Now, all 4 have been reportedly been brought to Sirt overnight. Tragically, all 4 were on their way to India via Tripoli and Tunisia when they were picked up. Though the role of the ISIS is still unconfirmed, sources are saying that the 4 Indians could be held hostage. Joining us now is Gaurav Sawant. Gaurav, what is the latest that you're hearing? We just heard from the Ministry of External Affairs saying that they're still delving into the details. But any latest updates?
From what we know so far, Avantika, the government is trying to find out which is the group that has abducted 4 of these professors. It is feared that it is the Islamic State. As you well know, Sirt is the stronghold of Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. He used to be from here, and after he was killed in 2011, there was major chaos in this area. There are several rebel organizations that are operating here. There are several rebel checkpoints. The 4 were teaching at the University of Sirt, and from the information we have so far, there are indications that they were abducted by the Islamic State, and negotiations, if at all, will be held with them. But those details are still being ascertained at this stage.
And didn't the Indian government, Gaurav, issue an advisory to all of the Indians who are working in that area to, leave conflict-hit Libya?
Not only was there an advisory in place, Government of India had organized a very massive evacuation attempt to bring people back from Egypt, from Syria, from Libya, all these areas ever since they descended into chaos. What is interesting at this point of time is to note that while the US has mounted a year-long operation against the ISIS, while they may be under some stress in parts of Libya and in parts of Syria and Iraq, they're actually growing in parts of Libya. And ever since Colonel Gaddafi's death, these terrorist organizations are only growing in strength, and their money is increasing because of the oil black market. Libya is one of the biggest producers of oil in the region.
And Gaurav, we already know how the ISIS is spreading its terror tentacles across the globe. If at all it is confirmed that this kidnapping in fact was carried out by ISIS, this would be rather alarming for Indian authorities as well.
It would be. You'd recall there are another 39 Indians who were abducted and still remain untraced in Iraq. They were reportedly abducted by the ISIS, so getting to them has been a major, getting them back has been a major source of concern for the government. The government, however, succeeded in the past to get those 50 Indian nurses out of the ISIS clutches. So this is an operation that is usually mounted through a lot of intelligence sources in that area. This is more an intelligence network operation than a government-to-government network, given the fact that ISIS government is an unrecognized government even in Iraq and in Syria. It's a group of terrorists who are actually running a very well-oiled machine and a very well-oiled administration. While in Iraq and Syria they do that, in Libya it's very, very chaotic after Gaddafi was killed.
Gaurav, can you just explain how the protocol will happen from now on? We did hear from the ministry that they are trying to reach out to their mission in Tripoli, but if you could just explain as to what happens next now.
An effort is being made to find out which is the terror group and if it is the ISIS, what part of the ISIS has abducted them and why. The fact that they were working in the University of Sirt, an ISIS stronghold, is very well known. They were returning to India. Was the ISIS against their returning to India? Did they want more money? Is this abduction for ransom, which is usually the case when ISIS abducts people? Abducting people is a multi-billion-dollar industry in this entire region, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Syria or parts of Libya. So that is still not clear at this stage. It will be a covert operation of negotiations, a give and take usually to get them back. But government to government, you will only request a government to help in securing their release.
All right, Gaurav, just stay with us. We are also joined by Deputy Editor Rohini Swami. Rohini, rather unfortunate news coming in. We believe that all the 4 Indians were on their way, back home when this unfortunate incident has taken place. Have you heard anything from the family members yet?
Well, I did try to contact one of them and one of the family members, but they do not want to comment as of now. They said as the MEA is in touch with them and trying to find out ways of getting them out and try to get certain details on the safety of these 4 Indians and all of them, 2 of them from Hyderabad, 1 from Raichur and 1 from Bangalore. I just got off the phone with the Home Minister of Karnataka also, and he says that he is also in touch with the MEA and they're trying to see as and when any inputs that come, they will share it with people because there are concerned families. But also we've seen how many people from South India and from other parts of India, but largely from South India, who work in places like Libya and from Syria, Iraq, and they have been asked to come back. And like Gaurav was saying, there have been advisories to come back, but they haven't. These 4 who are unfortunately were trying to come home, and at that time this incident has taken place. But we're expecting some more details coming out, which the MEA would share with the respective state governments, be it Telangana and Karnataka, with which the family could possibly get some details as to what their status is.
Okay, Rohini and Gaurav, just stay with us. In fact, this is the 3rd major kidnapping of Indians supposedly by ISIS terrorists. Last year, in fact, 40 Indian construction workers were abducted in Iraq's Mosul city. But a 24-year-old youth from Chandigarh, Harjeet Masaya, managed to escape. And just about a year later, the Indian authorities have absolutely no information about the whereabouts of these Indians, though they claim that they are still alive. In July 2014, 46 Indian nurses were held in ISIS captivity in the militant-controlled city of Tikrit in Iraq. However, after intense efforts by the Indian government, the nurses were finally released. Let's also just listen in to Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Vikas Swarup, who confirmed the kidnapping of the Indian nationals in Libya. In fact, in the statement he issued, he confirmed that out of the 4 Indians abducted in Libya, 2 are from Hyderabad, 2 from Karnataka and 1. In fact, let's just listen into what he had to say.
Around 11 p.m., our mission in Tripoli came to know that 4 Indian nationals who were returning to India via Tripoli and Tunis were detained at a checkpoint approximately 50 kilometers from Sirte. Of the 4 Indian nationals, 2 are from Hyderabad, 1 from Raichur and 1 from Bengaluru. 3 of them were faculty members at the University of Sirte and 1 was working at the Sirte University's branch in Jufra. The Ministry of External Affairs, through its head of mission in Tripoli, is ascertaining the details regarding the incident. According to information available through our sources, all the 4 Indian nationals have been brought back to Sirte. We are in regular touch with the families concerned and all efforts are being made to ensure the well-being and early release of our 4 Indian nationals.
In fact, our sister publication Mail Today managed to speak to 4 terror recruits, boys between the age of 20 and 25, who were hired by Islamic State and had set sailing to Syria last year. They were then intercepted by the police. Mail Today's correspondent Abhishek Bhalla gets you, for the first time, voices from among these terror recruits.
The most brutal face of terror, the Islamic State, spreading its tentacles slowly from Iraq and Syria into the hearts and minds of the young and the impressionable the world over. This is the voice of a 26-year-old. Mail Today spoke to a terror recruit. The publication has changed his name to protect his identity. Listen to Saifuddin's chilling confessions on what lured him into joining ISIS.
एकदम हाई क्वालिटी वीडियोस बनाते जिससे आप मतलब देखते ही यू लाइक वो कर जाना, अट्रैक्ट हो जाना. एंड उनकी ट्रेनिंग जैसा कराते थे वो हर चीज़ बताते थे. सो एनी यूथ गाय इन हिज टीन्स एज 20s will get attracted to that type of videos. They used to give a description of Jannat. I mean, like after the hereafter, life hereafter, this life is gonna end for 30 years, 40 years, 60 years. One day you're gonna die. if you die for the sake of jihad and for the sake of Allah, then you will get a paradise. Basically वो लोग ना लालच देते थे, लालची बनाते कि हर चीज़ अच्छा होगा यहाँ पर, ये है वो है. They used to give us money, financially they used to help us from Dubai or like UK. They used to give them, like, they didn't hesitate to give financial support. They were always ready to provide financial support.
Saifuddin's confessions on camera lay open the deadly, almost disturbing modus operandi of the terrorist organization. Most men like Saifuddin used to interact with ISI's handlers on social media platforms, where they were shown images and videos of people suffering and torture in Syria and Iraq. Saifuddin says most Indians wanted to serve conflict-hit Syria and not to be part of ISIS. Handlers would then force recruits to join as volunteers and travel to Turkey as on normal visas, and then cross over to Syria. But the Indian agencies were keeping a close watch. And that is why there was a plan B as well, to make Indians cross over illegally to Bangladesh and then facilitate their travel further to Turkey and Syria. Saifuddin is among the 3 people intercepted by Telangana police in September last year. For now at least, they have been let off after questioning. Agency is hoping that this step will go on a long way in de-radicalizing the youth tempted to join the Islamic State. With Mail Today inputs, Bureau Report, India Today.
In fact, Mail Today's correspondent Abhishek Bhalla now joins us for more. Abhishek, startling confessions there. But, you know, we've already seen how, according to intelligence inputs, the youth are being lured to join the terror group repeatedly.
Yes, Avantika. In fact, there is clear evidence with Indian intelligence now that there are constant efforts being made by the ISIS to lure youth from India. And in fact, these 4 young boys I spoke with, they were very candid while talking to me. And once I assured them that their identities will not be revealed, they told me who they were in touch with, what directions they were getting, and how they were instructed to travel to Turkey first and then cross over to Syria. In fact, there were 17 boys from Telangana who were intercepted, and the agencies ensured that they do not reach Turkey. And other than Telangana, there have been boys from Maharashtra who've been intercepted. There are at least 70 to 75 handlers or recruiters within the country that are under the radar of Indian intelligence agencies. And I've spoken to senior government officials, and they've said that there is a plan to sort of monitor all of these people, and the idea is to de-radicalize them. But if somebody crosses a threshold, then the arrest is imminent.
Is it only because of, the faith or the cause? One wonders, Abhishek, what is it that really lures these young minds, especially in today's age and day when they're exposed to all sorts of, technology, they are exposed to education? What exactly, is the modus operandi of the ISIS?
Well, the modus operandi as far as India is concerned is very, very different from what used to happen in the past if terror outfits had to recruit people. There is no formal indoctrination happening, unlike in the past. The boys are not being taken to a terror camp where they are going through training. It's all happening on social media. The vulnerable people are being spotted on Facebook or Twitter who comment on issues related to Islamic terror. And once they spot these people, then the indoctrination begins on social media. In fact, I spoke to these boys and they were very clear that they had no handler who they were in touch with physically. It was all happening on the cyber space. They were shown videos of atrocities, and they were given literature related to jihadi things. And once the handlers or the recruiters were sure that they are ready to join ISIS, that's when they convince them to come to Turkey. That's the modus operandi. It's a very unique kind of a modus operandi. It's not happened before, and that's the challenge, real challenge for agencies, because everything is happening on the cyberspace, and monitoring of the cyberspace is a big challenge for our intelligence.
Okay, Abhishek, stay with us. Foreign Affairs expert Commodore Uday Bhaskar is also with us. So what is your reading into the latest abduction? Really alarming trends there from the ISIS, which all of us know they are spreading the tentacles of terror. But your latest reaction on this abduction case that has been reported?
This is definitely a development that is of great concern. First of all, for the individuals who have been abducted and their families. And at the same time, I think it poses a very complex challenge as far as Indians resident abroad are concerned. Now, we are aware that this is not the first time that Indians have been targeted by certain entities in what you might call as West Asia and in North Africa. And the government has to monitor this very carefully and have a response that would be appropriately calibrated, because even as the whole country and the Ministry of External Affairs, which is the lead agency now, would be looking at this very closely. In recent years, you'll recall, Avantika, that we had the instances of pirates taking Indians hostage from various ships.
Yes.
Most recently, we had Indians in Iraq, in Mosul, who I think are still, their status is not very clear. And various forces and entities in the extended West Asia, North Africa region, because of the current state of instability and the ideology that is being associated with the Islamic State and its clones in different parts. I think we have to get all the available information, and if ever there was a case, I would say, for evolving some kind of protocol in terms of how cyberspace, particularly the audiovisual medium, is being used both by the perpetrators and the levels of anxiety that this can generate. I think India needs to introspect very carefully about how this is to be handled, because this is the equivalent of a development that is still unspooling. So I think it has to be treated with the appropriate degree of.
And if we speak about the present situation that we find ourselves in, how, you were talking about a complex challenge that it poses for the Indian authorities. How complex would it be in this scenario, sir, considering that, it is a terrorist organization? We are still seeking details. We still have no confirmation as to who is behind the abduction process.
No, this is a challenge which I would say is now something that the global community is facing in different ways. We in India are familiar with our experience, and you will remember the kind of discussions that animated the public space about the vulnerability of Indian citizens who go abroad for employment or otherwise, and what is both the capacity and the kind of space that is available to the Indian state to be able to provide timely and effective assistance when such instances do happen. The spectrum is large. As I said, we know about our piracy experience. More recently in West Asia, from Iraq all the way now to the Maghreb, we have seen such cases. And since the Islamic State has been identified, we just have to recall, for instance, what has happened in Nigeria by yet another group which claims affiliation and allegiance to the IS, and in the manner in which they had abducted their own local citizens. So I think there is the need for both the equivalent of a unitary response from India, where it is possible, and some kind of a collective action where the global citizen has now become the equivalent of a soft target. Yes, Indians are particularly vulnerable because of various characteristics that have been associated with India. And since the IS has taken such an inflexible position as far as its own Islamic ideology or its interpretation of Islam is concerned, many religions that are not within the so-called fold that they consider to be quote-unquote the faithful have been targeted. So I think India would have to really, as always, whenever there is a hostage situation or an abduction, the lives of those who have been so abducted is the most critical consideration. And from there, I think the ability to triangulate and get a sense about who the perpetrators are there any demands? I mean, there is a whole standard operating procedure, which I'm sure the government is more than familiar with. And the degree to which they get some kind of support or assistance from some of the local players, because the Maghreb, Libya itself, there are other countries in the region who would perhaps be able to play a constructive role. And as always, I imagine much of this would have to operate below the radar of what you might call as the public domain. So I think we should give it some time.
Right, and while we're still waiting for those details, the area from where the Indians were kidnapped is also under the control of the Islamic State. Abhishek, jihadist activities have also seen a rise of late. They've also been observed by intelligence agencies. And as Commodore Bhaskar rightly pointed that, especially Indians who go from India, specifically from South India, to these places are the most vulnerable.
Yes, that's true. In fact, they are not just vulnerable to be targeted by ISIS, but in fact, there are inputs that Indians based abroad also join the terror outfit. So there is a multi-pronged strategy, perhaps, that ISIS is using, and specifically targeting Indians in terms of recruitment as well as making these kind of abductions. This clearly shows that there is somewhere a sort of a strategy as far as ISIS is concerned, which is looking at India as a target. And that's what is a major concern for India. And the government is actually working towards coming up with a framework, with a strong policy to deal with this. In fact, top sources in the government have told me that early next month, which is next week, a high-level meeting has been convened by the Union Home Secretary, where senior officials from all state governments will come to Delhi and discuss the strategy on how to deal with the ISIS threat.
All right, Abhishek, thank you so much for giving us those inputs. Gaurav Sawant and Commodore Uday Bhaskar, thank you so much for giving us the latest inputs and perspective into the latest abduction case where 4 Indians have been abducted in Libya. There has still been no confirmation as to who really is behind the latest abduction. However, it is suspected to be carried out by the ISIS terror group. No demands of ransom have been made as of now, but we are still awaiting more information from the Ministry of External Affairs, who have already contacted their family members and their mission in Tripoli.